So a couple weeks back, in part 2 of my video about Reaper hotkeys, I featured a short segment on regions, and I asked you guys if you wanted to see a full video on regions. Well, one person commented that he would like to see that video, so this one's for you, lizard spawn of death. What's up YouTube, welcome back, my name's Tony. Today we're going to go over a function of Reaper known as regions. Now I touched upon this very briefly in part 2 of my Reaper hotkeys video, but regions are a really great tool within Reaper to organize your session. They can be a really great songwriting tool, and they've got plenty of other uses for session management and just keeping your life a little bit easier. Now before we jump into this video, please take a moment to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Leave me some comments down below, and down in the description if you want to support this channel further, there's a link where you can go to donate to buy me a coffee, because I'm a big fan of coffee. Alright, so let's jump right into it. Now I've already gone into this session and set up regions, organizing my session. So I've got region 1 labeled as intro, region 2 labeled as verse 1, then pre-chorus, chorus, re-intro, etc, etc. So I'm going to get rid of number 1 here, and I'm going to show you how to create a region. Creating a region is super simple. Start by making a time selection by either clicking and dragging on the timeline up at the top here, or anywhere on the TCP that doesn't already have a waveform on it. Once you've got your time selection, all you have to do is press Shift-R to create your region. Now once your region's been created, you can simply right-click on it, or use the hotkey Shift and double-click to open up the Edit Region window, where you can name it, change its ID number, change its color. So we're going to name this one Intro. So through this Edit Region window, you can customize how your region looks. Starting with your ID number, which is the number pictured right beside the title of your region, if you've added a title yet. Changing that number can be handy if you set your regions up out of order, or once you've started moving regions around, if you still want them to be numbered sequentially. So for example, I could set this region to be number 105. And then, up at the top there, it's now numbered 105. This window also shows you your starting position and how many bars the region lasts. In this window, you can also color code your regions to make it a little easier to organize and just at a glance see where you're at. So you would just go to Set Color, choose whatever color you want, let's go with orange, and there you go, now my region is orange. But if you change the color on your region, then you decide you're not happy with it and you want to go back to the default color, you can simply hit Reset Color and it'll go back to normal. So before we get into the region manager and the region render matrix, let's see what else we can do with regions. Now I really like using regions as an arrangement tool or a songwriting tool, because once you've got your region set up, it's super easy to kind of move around the arrangement of your song. So check this out. Coming from verse 1, we roll into a pre-chorus and then into a chorus. But what if we wanted to hear that section without the pre-chorus? Well, all we would have to do is grab our pre-chorus region, drag it to the end of the track. Reaper automatically does all the splitting you need, removes the audio from that section, and fills in the gap. And now we just go straight from verse 1 into the chorus. Now obviously that's a jarring split, that's not something I would want to do, but it's super easy to just hear how your song would sound without a section there. Or, for example, if we wanted to hear that pre-chorus between the intro and the verse, we could simply grab the pre-chorus region, move the little marker thing until it sits right in between verse 1 and the intro, and pop it there. And same sort of thing, it moves the region over there, does all the editing and moving of audio files that needs to be done, and you can simply go from your intro into your pre-chorus, and then into your verse. So using regions opens up a whole world of possibilities for arranging your song without you having to be a master at editing. You can simply create your region and move any part of your song around to any other part of your song and just see how it sounds. Now I use this a lot for like if I want to hear how a chorus sounds doubled, or if I want to see how a chorus sounds at half the length, or a verse or whatever section of the song you're working on. Now, a cool thing with moving regions around as well is that it doesn't have to land on one side or another of a specific region. We could take this pre-chorus and move it halfway through our verse. Now all of a sudden we've got half of verse 1 here, then a pre-chorus, then the other half of verse 1, then the chorus. So it's just that easy to shift around the arrangement of your song. And you can also copy regions and move them around pretty easily. I find this really handy when I'm writing a song. I've come up with the verse, and I've come up with the chorus, and now I want to put another verse and chorus that are the same arrangement right after that. Well, you can just copy the two regions, put them where they need to be, and you don't need to reprogram your drums or re-record your guitar or bass or anything. So to do that, you would simply hold Control, click on a region, and drag it out. And just like that, it copies your region and puts it wherever you want it to be. So if I wanted to add verse 2 right before the solo again, I could just hold Control, click on the region, move it right before the solo, and now we've got verse 2 in between chorus 2 and the solo. Super easy and super cool. Now, if you wanted to move a region's boundaries, but you don't want to move the audio within the region, you can do that too. If you hold Alt and click on the region, you can move the boundary of it without moving anything within the region. But to be clear, you have to hold Alt, click, and drag that around, because if you just hold Alt and click, that'll remove the region, leaving the audio intact. So now that we've covered that area of the basics of regions, let's go back into this Edit Region window and check out our Region Manager. So by clicking on the Region Manager, it opens this box here. It shows all of the regions that you have, what their ID number is, the start and end bar, and the length of them. As well as on the very left side of the window is your color coding for each region. And if you scroll over to the right, you have info about your render matrix, which we'll get into later, and a column for other information about your region. So one cool thing you can do with the Region Manager is double click on the ID number of one of your regions, and it'll blow up that region to fill up your whole screen. So if you need to edit a certain section, that's a nice easy way to get there. Another handy thing you can do here is batch color code your regions. So if we want all of our verses to be green, we select both verses, make them a green color, and boom, now both of our verses are green. You can do the same with the choruses. Let's make them blue. Same with the pre-choruses. I don't know, let's make them purple. Why not? So you can very easily color code everything so that you know exactly what section you're looking for and where to find it at a glance. Also from your Region Manager, you can access your render matrix, which also happens to be the other button on your Edit Region window. So when you pull up this window, what you're going to see is a grid containing all of your tracks down the left-hand side and all of your regions across the top, as well as slots for master mix or all tracks. Now through this matrix, what you can do is render down individual regions as either a master mix, multi-tracks, or stems. So if we wanted to just render down a full mix of just this chorus, we would just select Master Mix under this regions column and press Render. And we'll label this as Chorus 1. And then when you hit Render, it'll render down that selection, and what we've got is just a render of our chorus. Now the super cool thing about this region render matrix is that not only can we render down the master mix of this section, but we can get the master mix as well as stems all at the same time. And here's how we do that. Instead of just selecting master mix under the chorus, we're also going to go down and select the drum folder that I have the drums routed to, the bass because it's a single track, keyboard pads because they're also a single track, the guitar folder because there's multiple different tracks in there that I want to render down as a stereo stem, so that's why I've selected that, and the drums to a folder. Oops. And the same deal with the lead. There's a whole bunch of different tracks there. I want them to be one stereo stem, so I've sent them to a folder, and we'll select that folder. Now when we hit render, we're going to label this Chorus 1 Stems. You can see on the bottom here it now says render 6 files instead of render 1 file. It'll go through, render all those down. I'm going to open up the Explorer here. Select all of our stems on separate tracks. So So now what we've got here, this top one, is our master mix. Second one down here, just our drums. Then we've got just our bass. Just the guitars. Oops, sorry, just the keyboard pads. Just the guitars. And just the leads. So that's a really cool option. Now I haven't talked about this all tracks column yet. So what this would do is select all the applicable tracks in your entire project, which would be handy for bouncing out multi-tracks. But the problem is when you do it this way and bounce everything out, everything's now going to be a stereo file, which that could be fine, but when clients send me their multi-tracks, I prefer the mono files to be mono and the stereo files to be stereo. So personally, I find consolidating the tracks to be a much better option for doing that. If you're not aware of how to consolidate tracks, I'll put a link right up in the top corner of this video that'll take you to my video on how to consolidate and export tracks in Reaper. Well anyways, if you wanted to bounce down both a master mix and stems of your entire song, what you'd need to do is create another region. Now, you can have overlapping regions in Reaper here, and I'll show you how to do that. Firstly, we would select the entire song in a time selection. Easiest way to do that, start with the outro or the intro wherever, double click within the region to make a time selection, and just drag this area right back to the beginning. Then, just like creating any other region, we're going to hit Shift R, and that creates a brand new region for everything. That won't overlap most of your track, but it will overlap the earliest region that it touches. So if we were to take this and move it over here, now it's going to overlap the verse, now it's going to overlap the pre-chorus, etc. So I'm just going to leave it like that, and it'll just overlap the very beginning intro region. So let's go ahead and name that one Full Song. So now back in our region render menu, we're going to go through that same process on our full song region. So we're going to select Master Mix. We're going to select our drum folder to get all of our drum tracks into one stereo file. Our bass track, pads, guitar folder, again to get all the tracks within there into one stereo file. And our lead folder to get all of those tracks into one stereo file. Now we're going to hit render. Oh, here's something that I didn't come across before. Our options down here to render are grayed out because you can see under the time bounds here it says 0 regions. So we're going to go into our region manager, click on our full song, exit out of that, and now you can see it says up here 1 region, which will be our full song region. We're going to rename this F0 region plus stems, and down here you can now see it says render 6 files. So we will render those 6 files. Do be aware that these will render post-fader. That's handy if you're printing off stems at the end of a mix and you want to retain your balance. But if you're sending off stems to a producer who has requested them or a client who has requested them, and retaining that balance isn't as important as having a strong signal, you'll want to go through and zero out your faders before you render these tracks out. Anyways, we're going to click Show in Explorer to get right to those. So you can see they've rendered down here our F0 region plus stems, all numbered, so I'll select those. Now for demonstration's sake, I'm going to select a new file in Reaper. And we'll just drag and drop these files there, separate tracks. Now once again, we've got our stems for the entire song. So, up top here, we've got the full song. Next one down is our drum stem. Next one down is our bass stem. Then pads. Then guitars, and then leads. Now the real cool thing about doing it this way, all these stems will retain the level that you had your mix at. So if we were to, let's mute this out and then solo it, so the only thing we're hearing is the master mix render from that region. And then when we unsolo that, nothing should change because it'll be the exact same mix, just split out through the stems. There was a slight volume difference there. I'm not quite sure what that's about, but as you can see, we still retained all the balance levels throughout our mix, and that's really the important part here. Now I think we've only just scratched the surface of what regions are capable of in Reaper. But everything I've included in this video I use on a very regular basis, and it makes my life when I'm working on songs a whole lot easier. Well guys, thank you so much for tuning into this video. I hope you learned something about regions. If you like this video and would like to see more content like this one, please hit that like button, that subscribe button, and that notification bell. Leave me some comments down in the comment section, let me know what you would like to see in the future. And if you want to support the channel even further, there's a link down in the comments that you can follow to buy me a coffee, because I'm a big fan of coffee. Thanks again for watching, we'll see you next time.